Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked here on the channel. This is the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because we've got to remember to do it. Today we're talking about River Solomon's The Deep. Some quick disclaimers before we start. I think this book was a gift from a family member or I bought it myself, but regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. I'm a big believer in you not really being able to spoil novellas, but I won't spoil anything for you. If you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, pause this video. Come back when you've read it, we'll talk then. And I will link the story graph for the book below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. This is a speculative sci-fi fantasy novella that originally came out in 2019? November 2019. I have notes. It is by River Solomon, who has also written a whole bunch of other stuff. My most recent read of theirs was Sorrowland, which I really enjoyed. Enjoyed is probably the wrong word for Sorrowland. I found it a very compelling read. So this book is written by River Solomon, but it's also with David Diggs, William Hudson and Jonathan Snipes, who make up the band Clipping, because this was originally a story by someone whose name I've already forgotten, so I'm going to just check in the afterword. Drexciya, Drexciya, which is a Detroit techno-electro duo, and then it became a song by Clipping, and then it became the novella. All three of them are interpretations of that original kind of idea, which I will come on to in just a moment. In fact, I'll come on to it now. Yetu holds the memories for her people, water-dwelling descendants of pregnant African slave women thrown overboard by slave owners who live idyllic lives in the deep. Their past, too traumatic to be remembered regularly, is forgotten by everyone save one, the historian. This demanding role has been bestowed on Yetu. Yetu remembers for everyone, and the memories, painful and wonderful, traumatic and terrible and miraculous, are destroying her. And so she flees to the surface, escaping the memories, the expectations and the responsibilities, and discovers a world her people left behind long ago. So, a difficult topic, a very difficult concept for a novella in so many different ways and very hard to explain, so I'm very glad that they've written a concise blurb that I could use because I don't think I can summarise this book well enough. Why should you read this? I think firstly it is gorgeously written. River Solomon has just the most wonderful writing style that is just so evocative of everything that this book is trying to produce. This water-based world is so clear in my mind, and I'm not a hugely visual person, but I can really see this world in this book. And it's almost poetry without being flowery. It's just stunning. It's just beautiful and still manages to honour the characters and give the characters voice. I find often with, especially in novella contexts, you either get a very flowery and beautiful but character devoid book, or a very characterful book where the prose is slightly different, and this manages to balance both. And I think that's just really beautiful and really perfect for this setting where there's quite a lot that you have to describe, because describing an underwater world is always going to be so different to describing a surface world. It's just fantastically written. I also think this book is a really great novella format book. They do say at the end of the book, you've probably whizzed through this book way too quickly and now you regret it. I can't remember their exact wording. It's definitely a case that it's quick to read, obviously. It's a shorter book, but it's perfectly paced and perfectly packed in that you don't feel, at least I didn't feel, like I wanted more from it when I got to the end. I felt like it told the story it wanted to tell and it left all the right threads hanging that you could go forth in your mind and kind of imagine what would happen, which is my favourite thing that novellas can do. They don't always succeed at it, but novellas can do it. And I think that this is one of those stories that I would hold up as a novella that should be a novella. I don't know if everyone would agree with me, I don't know if that's the case, but I found that this was exactly what I wanted, and this was exactly the pacing and the story and the format that I wanted this story in. This is a little bit abstract and a little bit meta, but I really like that element of the story where we have these three versions of this same story being told, and an interesting thing, so you can go and listen to the Clipping song. It's a really good song, and Clipping are a great band. Thank you, my friend Bex, for recommending them to me. I'm going to read to you from the afterword because I just found it really fascinating. Readers and listeners have before them three, let's call them objects of study: the recorded oeuvre of Drexciya and its associated artwork and linear notes, the Clipping song, The Deep, and River Solomon's novella, The Deep. We prefer to imagine each of these objects as artifacts, as primary sources, each showing a different angle on a world whose nature can never be observed in totality. Each contributor has told their story about the same underwater city, and each telling has its own specific perspective, the way any two true stories about our own world can provide differing or even incompatible visions of our reality. Experiencing these works requires labour, something like that of an archaeologist who's discovered multiple texts about the Drexciyan civilization and is tasked with assembling a picture of that civilization. We ask a lot of our readers and listeners. This is why we will return to the metaphor of the game of telephone. It's no fun with one person, and the joy is that no misheard utterance is more correct or true than any other. The pleasure is in the process, and the value is not in any one version of the phrase, but in its gradual transformation. Just a really interesting idea, and kind of putting a novella in a broader context in a really interesting way. I don't know that that's necessarily therefore you must absolutely run out and buy this for this reason, but I just find it really interesting, and it's why I've held on to this book longer than I possibly would have done otherwise. My camera battery may be about to die. Let's do a quick battery switch and then we'll be back with some of the other bits. There are, however, reasons that you might not want to read this. It's a heavy subject matter. I think it's an important one. I think it's a really interesting one, but it is heavy. I would check out the content warnings before you pick this up. It's definitely not a book I would read if I was in a particularly low mental place, but I do think it is still well worth reading. Just River Solomon is not an author that you can just pick up on a breezy afternoon and blast through. And I would also say it's well worth taking your time with this book. It's one you're going to want to reread, at least in my opinion. I've definitely found that this book has grown with every single reread, which is something I like in a novella. But maybe you're a person who doesn't want to commit to rereading a novella. I don't know you. I would say if you are reading it, therefore, just take your time, take it slowly. The kind of impulse I have with shorter books is to go, great, this is a nice quick win, I'll whiz through it. And actually, I think more often than not, it's really important to take my time. And I think also there is that thing of maybe you would want more at the end of this. Maybe you would want this to be a full novel. I personally don't experience that, so I don't necessarily agree, but I do know some people have really found they wanted it to be a full-length novel, and then you're just left a little bit lacking. Not my personal experience, but a potential experience you might have if you pick this up. Other things you might want to read if you've read this. I am working on a very big novella project video. At some point in the future that will come out, but I've got to read a bunch more novellas before then, so stay tuned for that. I've got an old novella video up that you can search for on the channel. It's getting a little bit out of date now, but it is still there. And other River Solomon works if you would like that. I definitely thought that Sorryland was a really great read. I haven't read Unkindness of Ghosts, but I have friends who've really liked it. Again, liked is a complicated word with River Solomon because they tend to write very dark works, but it is a book that exists that I've heard good things about. Should you read this? I have a thing about mermaid-based books. These aren't mermaids in the strictest sense, but it's drawing from those ideas. I very rarely enjoy them, especially if they are quote-unquote dark mermaid books, meaning mermaid books dealing with difficult themes and topics. Often they end up being a little bit of a, no pun intended, a little bit of a wash for me. This is one of my exceptions. I just think this is a fantastic novella, a really interesting topic, a really thought-provoking book. Would recommend. Have you read this? Do you have plans to? Do you have a favourite River Solomon book? What are your thoughts generally? Do you have any books that are based on songs that you would recommend? I think that's a really interesting idea. Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams and more. If you would like to join their number, that's linked in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. It might fall down. I think we're okay. Itchy nose, my nose is really itchy.